few things I want to point out in this video. First of all, I'm testing out a new microphone for better audio, and I'm hoping that that is evident in this intro. Okay, I wasn't satisfied with the previous microphone and the previous audio, so I need to boost my stuff up. So let me know your thoughts of the audio thus far. Secondly, I'm using Invisalign braces. I'm trying to push my teeth back a bit. So if I sound funny at any point, it's probably because I have it in. So, how to be a masculine introvert. Now, of course, we live in an age where masculinity and the polarity between females and males is under heavy scrutiny from both sides, right? You've got some people that suggest that we shouldn't rely on the old stringent gender roles that were evident in the past. And some believe actually we need to return to this way of being because it gave us a lot of success in areas of family, nationhood perhaps, maybe even patriotism, right? But especially in the Western world, the introvert is a bit of a loose cannon in the sense that many are misunderstood, many get overlooked, undervalued. You know, the shy, retiring or reserved man sometimes has been frowned upon, you know? And this is the whole basis of this channel direction, is to have support for men who consider themselves to be introverts, okay? And this is a chief reason why I think it's primarily introverted men who are suffering in the world today, in this modern world, with areas where it pertains to relationships particularly, but also friendships with other men. And I truly believe that it's this lack of support for the introverted male that is causing a heap of cognitive errors. Now, obviously, you know, mental disorders and stuff like that is inherent or it's innate, right? Usually a disease that you get from birth, right? But I think aside from that, introversion with a lack of support, especially from parents, school teachers, etc., can also cause a miserable life, basically, you know? Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is, just so you know, and I know it's not quote-unquote professional, but when I got my phone out, I'm usually playing Pokemon Go, okay? And I know I have a, you know, I always grin because of that, because I know it seems odd that a grown man's playing Pokemon Go, but hey, it gets me out of the house, gets me walking on a day like this, which is actually a great day. I've actually been out riding throughout the city, you know, but forgive me if you see me with my phone out here. I'm not trying to be awkward or weird. I just want to play as I talk. My biggest concern is that men live a life holding themselves back. Actually, I'm going to walk the other way because I just see some holly. I'm not about to get scratched up. Men who forfeit, basically, who succumb to being too reserved to the point where they become shy and they are unwilling and simply unable. They're frozen to get out, put themselves out there, to gain experience, to do the things that they've always wanted to do, to go to the places they've always wanted to travel to speak to the people they want to speak to. I think that that is the worst state a person can be in, where they haven't lived the life that they wished or had hoped that they'd live. And as an introvert myself, and as someone who was shy in the past and someone who's still reserved, I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm hoping that this information helps you, the listener, in at the very least, raising the question to yourself. I just see a creature up ahead. I think it might actually be a fox. So I think firstly, what is masculinity? Obviously it's going to be, okay, the fox disappeared. These foxes are so wily, and I'm always known to never approach a cornered fox. So I never know what they're going to do, but they're so wily. Don't know if it's still here. No, it's gone. But ideas of masculinity is obviously subjective. Some might say it's objective, but it's subjective to everyone's norms, cultural norms, social norms, people's positions in life, politics, you know, orientations and stuff like that. So in my opinion, masculinity is all about being an individual, being a rugged individual. And I believe this is the hallmark of masculinity. This is what paved the way for an age of exploration. You know, this is what chiefly delivered innovations. You know, taking bold steps forward, doing the different thing that people might laugh at, but you still do it anyway. Going against the norm, for me, is masculinity. And I think it's important to denote what masculinity is, because in this age, again, we live in a, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who's very famous in this, on the internet. I was actually watching a program about the dark web, and he was on it. What's his name? With the bald head. I can't believe I forgot the name. Let me just quickly Google search his name. Tate, Andrew Tate. How can I forget Andrew Tate? We live in an age of Andrew Tates. Everyone's trying to coin masculinity. Everyone is trying to monetize masculinity, you know? And here we can see how people can be mentally controlled. And this is via being mentally fragile, usually because the listener of such content is too young and is very impressionable. So we have like a robot army of masculine guys and all these other kind of masculine orientated groups, such as pickup artists, you know, people who speak about women as if they are single entities, you know, because there is no clear definition of what this is. You're just going to follow the next guy with a beard, some muscles and a phallic-like object in the mouth blowing smoke into his lungs, and you will think that's masculinity. Speaking of beard, I can't believe I forgot to say it. I think this is my first video without a beard, ever, right? And I just want to say this as well, since we're on the topic of masculinity. If the idea of shaving your beard is a fearful one, if you can never ever shave your beard, you need to consider, what is that beard about? What does it mean to you? There is a level of being emancipated, you know, when you have a shave. Obviously it takes a few days to adjust to your face, especially me, because it's been like 20 years since I shaved or something like that. But you should try it, I recommend it. Again, this is an example, I guess, of a rugged individualism, right? I'm probably going against the norm of what these masculine guys are telling guys to be. Grow a beard, you need facial hair. You know, it's obviously different if it's a part of your religion, but Right now, if you've got a big beard, you need to ask yourself, why have you got a big beard? Who told you or influenced you to grow that beard like that? Have you grown that beard because you think it's a masculine trait? Or worse, have you grown that beard because you're trying to appease others, namely women? You know, food for thought. And again, this is the chief task of these type of videos, food for thought. There's so many TikToks and softcore coon that is making you unattentive. Food for thought is very important. But sorry, where was I? So we understand what masculinity is, at least my definition. Rugged individualism, and especially as it pertains to introverts. You see, introverts, we quickly get a notoriety almost for being quirky. And many people, many men will take this as in a negative way. Many men don't want to stand out from the crowd. Many men don't want to be seen as different. Because if you're seen as different, then there's a risk of being seen as having some sort of disability. If you're different from the norm, you're probably a weirdo, right? And I think introverts gain this quirky personality is because typically very creative, typically living in our minds, which has its pros and cons, but when done right, it's a positive thing. When done right, you might end up being a trendsetter in fashion, for example, because of your quote-unquote quirkiness. You know, when done right, you could be someone who has expressed ideas in great novels, in great media, you know, great films, great music. You know, and it's usually these types of people that are the trendsetters. Although they are usually the reserved, behind the scenes type of person, they still have a very important place in humanity. You know, so I believe in order for the introvert male to maintain their masculinity, if they so pursue it, leaning into your quirkiness, leaning into your unique disposition is something that is vital. And you can't be ashamed for being the way you are. You can't be ashamed for expressing yourself in the way that you do. Again, thinking about the Western world, if you are a reserved person, you know, often that is seen as almost like being some sort of failure, because it seems like either you're not interested in things or you are just impotent, meaning that you're just not effective in life. You know, you can't convince people, you can't affect people in a real way. Just not effective. And I think impotent is a very good term to describe this, because we all know the sexual definition of impotent. That is usually a person who can't penetrate a woman, right? And so sometimes people see this type of introvert as impotent in life. You can't penetrate the world. You know, you can't get things done. You can't sell the product. You can't speak to people. You can't stand in front of a crowd and articulate your thoughts. You are afraid, you are shy and retiring. And I think that gets negative press because people assume reservedness to be shyness, and these are two different things, okay? A reserved person is just basically, like most introverts, basically a person who doesn't feel the need to be as expressive in speech, for example, and is more on the thoughtful side, is more thinking more about situations. right? Whereas shyness is a person who is basically socially awkward or socially anxious, afraid to speak, afraid to get up on the stage and do what they need to do. Shyness needs to be scrutinized because, yes, shyness is something that will make you impotent. You know, shyness is the thing that will not allow you to speak to your childhood sweetheart, you know? And 30 years later, you'll be lamenting, asking yourself, beating yourself up, why couldn't I express myself? You know? You might see your childhood sweetheart ending up with a guy who looks just like you, who sounds just like you. You might be slightly taller and better, quote unquote, but you missed out because you were shy. You know, and obviously it's not just in the realm of relationship that's important. Job opportunities. You know, can you travel across the ocean to a foreign country to sell our wares so you can get that contract deal signed, you know, by articulating yourself in an effective way? You know, can you do that? Or are you going to bail and make some sort of excuse because, you know, you're anxious, you're shy? Shyness needs to be scrutinized. And I think shyness is akin to a defect, a personality defect. You know, it's not something to be proud of as a man. And honestly, if you're a shy man, life is going to be hard. Seriously, life is just going to be hard, point blank. Again, you're going to be ineffective. You're not going to be able to get things done. I can tell you as a man, and most other men will tell you, as soon as you either enter or leave your teenage years, as a man, nothing is going to come to you. Nothing is going to come to you. Let's leave it at that. Favors, opportunities, money, friends, nothing is going to come to you if you are not able to outreach. You know, in the area of friends, okay, that should be a mutual exchange. You should meet in the middle, shake hands, and do it that way. But in other areas, you have to go out and get it. You know, and that's where those masculinity principles really shine through. Again, we're living in an age where people don't want it to be so binary, but we still abide by certain gender roles that I think it's cognitive dissonance for people, especially women, in my opinion, to not believe exists. You know, in many cases, and with, I would say most people, or most women won't walk up to a man to declare their affection for him. At the very least, or at the very most, you might get a look, a suggestive look, right? Or you might get someone who's bold enough to come into your sphere physically, right? But that's about it. You're not really going to get women who are courageous enough to set the pace. And think about that in a grander scheme. If that is how our mating culture is, then what is the fate of humanity? If it wasn't for men being able to, overcome social anxiety and speak to people, what would be the fate of the society? Do you know what I mean? So I think, yeah, it's very important. And again, I don't like it when people act like it's not. You know, men, that's why a lot of men are suffering, especially young men, because young men have been schooled on this idea that, you know, it's non-binary. You don't have to be masculine, right? But a lot of men who are coming out of these school years are starting to realize that they're perhaps being sold a dream, or at the very least, we're not there yet. You know, you still need to penetrate the world as a man, just as you know, figuratively penetrate, or not even figuratively, just as you would penetrate a woman. You know, this is the reality of things. So again, for me, shyness, which is linked to a lot of introverts, in my opinion, is an abnormality. And I think, you know, for most people, shyness is something that can be overcome. And I think a lot of it stems from our childhood, a lot of it traumatic upbringing, bad parenting styles that, you know, for example, you know, many African parents, you know, I'm an African, essentially. Many African parents might berate a child for expressing critical thinking, you know, for, you know, speaking their opinion or asking questions or speaking back. So if that parent disciplines a child for doing these things, then what are they going to express when they're older? You know, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to being a manager, you know, when it's incumbent of you to have grand ideas and have an open mind and be critical about things, you're basically being raised to be a follower. You're being raised to be a person that can't be critical, that can't think outside of the box. You know, and this is how shyness disables men. And I say only men because, you know, women can kind of get away with it. Again, with my example, it's usually going to be a man that goes to a woman, you know, to set the pace. Sometimes some careers go to women, you know, can you babysit? Usually goes to, you know, younger girls, you know. Oh, you have model looks. Come and model for my agency. You know, like a woman can be shy and the world can still come to her. This isn't about begrudging that, by the way. This is just about respecting and understanding the reality of life. You know, I've never been about anger, being upset, gender war. No, I'm not a part of no gender war. I don't declare war on any females. I love my woman and the females, well, most of the females in my life, right? So it's not about having a grudge for the situation, but it's about knowing and realizing what it is. I know I go on a bit on a tangent in these walks, but hopefully I've honed in on the point. The point is that there are ways to be seen as an effective masculine introvert. And being a reserved man is not a negative thing. In many areas of life, it's actually a good thing. You know, many introverts observe stereotypical extroverts, and they see that, you know, these talkative people person, you know, are, you know, good on the outside, but it might not be, as deep in terms of thinking, deep in terms of creativity, in terms of innovation. You know, in many situations, it's, in many companies, many businesses, the brains behind that business's success, from what I know anyway, from my opinion, introvert. You know, that's the brains, and the face, typically extrovert. You know, the face, like a secretary, an attractive face that brings in the business. You know, so a reserved man is not a negative thing, and it's just a shame again, because when you look at social media, you look at the TV advertising, you look at these commercials or these shows, it's an extroverted, talkative, outgoing, attractive, you know, extroverted man. I hope did I say extroverted twice? But essentially, don't be the guy that succumbs to shyness. You can overcome your shyness. You don't have to be, introversion is not synonymous with being a shy person. Being a reserved person is fine. That is usually your nature, right? But shyness should be overcome. I mean, let me think of some famous introverted masculine men. Mike Tyson is the first one that comes to mind. Mike Tyson. Many people won't even assume he's an introvert, but that's actually his personality type. I don't remember what it is on a Myers-Briggs, but yeah, he's an introvert, you know. But who else? I think Putin is a classical example of a masculine introvert. You know, when you compare Putin with Trump, you can see that Putin is more so the thinking type, probably a bit more calculated, a bit more strategic in their words, in their appearances, you know, because that requires a lot of thought. Einstein is a classical introvert, and Einstein has perhaps made one of the greatest impacts on the modern world, right? But he was also socially anxious. He was almost like the negative traits of an introvert, but he was still an introvert. And I would still consider him to be a masculine man for the feats that he has achieved, that he will be remembered in throughout the whole of humanity. This man will be remembered. And this is probably some, to our standards, weird introvert with messed up hair in some lab somewhere doing some calculations. You know, so the point is, and actually I might do my introvert analyses on these characters. Okay, so look forward to that. The point is, you matter. Okay, and I'm trying to look at the camera when I say that. You matter. And you need to lean into your individuality. It's gonna take time and it's gonna take practice, but that is the task long term. Because once again, you don't wanna be the person who has not lived their life to the fullest, who has loads of regrets. Like seriously. You know, one big regret, let me just speak about I like to talk about my L's, okay? One big regret that I have, I guess, in my martial arts career is that when I started Taekwondo, I started quite late in my teens. Normally, you start when you're a kid, you know, to get to the level that I ended up in. But I started late and I started to win a lot of championships quite early. So that was indicative of some sort of talent. I don't consider myself to be a talent, but it obviously is for that to happen, because Taekwondo is a very technical sport. But in some instances, it was my shyness that held me back. My shyness to want to put myself out there, throw myself out there, compete all the time. You know, go to different clubs, train with their best fighters, you know, just to put myself out there, to be on a, what is Trump doing currently? Be on a tour or a campaign, you know? Because of elements of being shy, that kind of held me back from reaching my full potential in this sport, in my opinion. In this country, as a heavyweight, I was actually usually, at least for the people that show up to the competitions, I'm usually one of the top 3 to 5 heavyweights in the country in Taekwondo. You know, circa, let's say, 2010. And as the Olympics now is showing, it just makes me kind of remember that, hey, you know, all my coaches said, hey, you got the potential to be an Olympian, you know, You have talent, don't let anyone tell you otherwise, you know, but, you know, you're shy, you give in to your self-doubt, and then you lose and miss out on opportunities, even though you have the perfect ingredients to attain what you want in life. You know, it's very important, and it's all related. So essentially, in a sentence, don't be the guy that gave in to shyness and never was able to show the world his talents. This is why it's important to be a masculine introvert. I hope this made sense. Let me know your thoughts in the chat box below. Please do like the video if you enjoy these videos. If you want a bigger conversation with other people, new people, very important to like the video. But with that being said, catch you in the next one.